Welcome everyone to the CoinRock show. Today we have Mike Jarmuz. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, by the way?
Sure, it sounds great.
Okay. So as always, I'm going to read the short official bio that we have, and then of course, Mike, go ahead and tell your story because it's always, we always want to hear from the guests on when it comes to their own story, and then we will be talking a lot about Bitcoin, a lot to cover. So let's get going. So the official bio is Mike, or the Muzzman, is the founder of Lightning Ventures and Thunder Funder. His focus is exclusively on investing in Bitcoin and open source companies. He aims to evangelize, democratize, and help demystify early stage investing for plebs and whales alike. Mike is passionate about educating founders and operators on strategies to fund their projects. If you want to learn more about funding your rad Bitcoin company or get started investing in awesome companies, chat him up. That's Mike. That's the official bio. Tell us more.
Wow, official. Official it is. Yeah, that's pretty good. I bio's probably due for a little update. But yeah, obviously I'm a Bitcoiner and I came around in that Max Kaiser era when he was on the Kaiser report at around $3 or so and started just trying to learn what I could. Wish I
Yep.
had more money then. I think everyone wishes they had invested more in Bitcoin when they first was put on their radar. So I was
Yep.
in New York at the time. I had a bar in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and there was kind of a homemade Bitcoin ATM. It was actually the second Bitcoin ATM in Manhattan at the time, and we had that in our little bar. It was called Old Man Hustle. And that was a
Nice.
whole different time for Bitcoin ATMs. You know, we really had a lot of shady people coming in there, peeling off $100 bills until the bill acceptor was full. And at that point in time, that was pre-bit license and all that stuff, of course. So another little regret. I wish I had started working in Bitcoin back then. I didn't. I was in
Yep.
healthcare technology and had a couple of exits for some companies that I was working for, as well as had the bar and a bunch of other small businesses. I was in the music business before that for about 10 plus years or so, and have just always done my own thing, very eclectic experience. I owned a flower shop and a cafe and a retail store in Arizona and all sorts of ridiculous things.
Nice.
So somewhere along the line, I fell in love with angel investing. So investing in early stage startups, not necessarily Bitcoin startups, just any kind of startup, really,
Yep.
whatever is on the tip of the sphere as far as technology goes worldwide, or the trends of whether it's restaurant technology, all of those type of DoorDash, Postmates. I had all of those pre exit or IPO. Or the buy now, pay laters, the Klarnas, things
Yep.
like that that are happening all over the world in fintech, and just really kind of fell in love with private markets. So started investing in late stage secondary opportunities because I didn't want to lose all my money.
Yep.
And then I pretty much exclusively started investing in early stage stuff because I was all right with losing all my money, especially when it's small amounts of money, right? You can be
Yep.
wrong small, but the outliers and the winners more than make up for it. So
Yep.
I psychotically invested in probably over 1,500 companies when you add them all up. And that's
Mm.
probably over 2,200 deals when you count the follow-on rounds and stuff like that. And I've really enjoyed watching these companies grow, reading the updates from the founders, and really learning as much as I could on my own as far as angel investing goes. I'm completely self-taught, and everything I learned myself from my first IPO, which was actually a direct listing with Spotify. That was my
Nice.
first exit there, and you learn as you go, and that's kind
Yep.
of what I've done. And in 2021. I decided to start Lightning Ventures, which is a boutique venture capital firm that's just focused on Bitcoin startups. That's it. That's all we do. So no
Yep.
more robotic lawn mowers or flying cars or drug companies or whatever. That's all done. I just started focusing exclusively on Bitcoin startups, cutting small checks to founders, trying to be helpful in any way that we can. And I started up a syndicate, which is basically a group of investors who pool their capital together to invest in startups. So if
Yep.
you're in the Lightning Ventures syndicate, you might get a deal that says Lightning Ventures invites you to invest in XYZ company, right? Or any portfolio company that we have. And the minimums are always very low, only $1,000. And it's a great way for an angel investor or aspiring angel investor who's maybe a Bitcoiner but wants to, be exposed to some of this, to be able to invest small amounts in some Bitcoin startups that they know and love. So we operate that investor syndicate through Lightning Ventures. We deployed a pilot fund. It was very small. It was a friends and family fund. And then most recently, we got a FINRA crowdfunding portal license and we launched Thunder Funder. And Thunder
Yep.
Funder is a way that retail who aren't accredited investors, or basically nearly anyone, I say nearly because it's not everyone,
Yep.
can invest in these type of offerings. So there's a little bit more red tape, and we're dealing with FINRA and the SEC and all of that stuff that goes into it. The minimums are also a little less than 1,000. It's hard to believe that there's less than 1,000. But Thunder Funder is fairly new, and that's something that we're really kind of working on, doing a big platform upgrade. It's going to look great when it's done, and yeah, that's kind of the gist of everything we have going on over here.
Nice. We'll link the platform around the recording of the video and the small clips around here. So a lot to talk about. Out of so you said 2,200 deals in angel investing, right?
Mhm.
How many of those did well? Like, what's the percentage that you would define with your parameters? First of all, what is doing well, and like what makes you happy out of the 2,200, and what percentage is that?
Sure. So that's actually great, and I should really drop my spreadsheet into some GPT, kind of build me a dashboard or give me some
Yep.
things to think about. I've actually never done that. I used to keep better records of my personal angel investing. I haven't really spent that much time in there unless there's a exit or liquidity event or something where I log it in the sheet in the P&L. But what do you mean by, okay, doing well? So at the time that I started in the later stage secondary companies, not having your money tied up for very long and
Yep.
maybe getting a 4x return, 3, 4x your money back in 18 to 20 months. That to me was great. I would do that all day. If you could invest $20,000 into a later stage company and you have a robust IPO market and then they go public, and then of
Yep.
course there's a lot of times there's a lockup period. Not always, right? Sometimes with direct listings you can sell right the day they go public. Sometimes you have a direct listing and a lockup period like Palantir did. I didn't even know you
Yep.
could do that. But so maybe 18 to 20 months later, the 20,000 that you put in, you can ring the register and cash out 70, 80,000. I was very happy with that. So
Mm.
as an angel that was learning, and we're talking about fairly small amounts of money here.
Yep.
I loved that, and I thought that that was it, and I was just going to be able to do that forever. And when you talk about success or IPOs or even experiences, just because an IPO doesn't mean it's a good outcome. I've had
Yeah.
plenty
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've had IPOs that were terrible outcomes.
Yeah.
I mean, Rent the Runway. Oh my gosh. I mean, I call it Puke the Runway. That was terrible.
I think the IPO
Wish.
thing is like it's sold as the holy grail, but it actually can go very wrong. So maybe talk about that and like what's maybe an experience without maybe sharing the name if you don't want to, but what went wrong and how did it go wrong?
Well, when you're dealing with late stage secondary markets, you're dealing with an individual or maybe an earlier venture fund that is really looking to take some money off the table or redistribute that capital back to their LPs.
Mm.
So let's say that someone, an early stage venture fund invested $100,000 into Airbnb's Series A or seed extension round or
Yep.
whatever. Somewhere along the line, in the life cycle of that, and remember, they were a private company for, I want to say, at least 10 years, maybe
Yep.
12, before they finally IPO'd. They have to distribute money back to their LPs. You have to do something. So a lot of times you go to these secondary markets, you kind of establish a valuation, you get some kind of approval from the board, or at least an indication from the CFO that they are approving transactions and they will
Yep.
support this transaction. And maybe they're able to take a third or half of that original investment, distribute 10 times the money back to
Mm.
their LPs, and then
Yep.
still ride the other half or two-thirds of it the rest of the way. So there has to be buyers for these, right? And
Yep. Yep.
it's not often like a private transaction where it'll be somebody else that's on the cap table. It also is often that. But they go to various platforms with accredited investors, and they'll bundle up that million and a half allocation in Airbnb, and they'll get a
Yep.
lot of Muzzmans for 20,000 bucks or whatever a pop, some a lot more, or
Yep.
whatever, in there to kind of facilitate that. And the company does a ROFR, a right of first refusal, and they'll either
Yep.
buy them themselves or whatever. So you're the buyer, right? It's a
Yep.
thinly traded secondary market. So in a really bad period of the economy, when everyone's flipping out, I mean, you can buy stuff on the secondary markets like dirt cheap. I mean,
Yep.
things like Airtable and Artsy and all of these type of, they were trading like 80% below their previous valuation. People just wanted to sell it. Now,
Yep. Yep.
that can also be an early employee of the company too, right? So an early employee of the company might want some liquidity. Okay, maybe they're
Yep.
sitting on $2 million of Uber shares before they're going public and they're a hot company, and they'll approve that transaction and he's able to. It's not necessarily a bad sign for the company, right? There's life events, there's
Yep.
things that happen, and you just want to take some money off the table. So for example, BlockFi, at the height of when BlockFi was great, and was going to be this monster of a company,
Yep. They were
someone,
everywhere on social, everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, eh, someone, whether that was an early employee that maybe knew something, or maybe it was a early fund that wanted some liquidity, someone sold BlockFi shares on the secondary markets at a $5 billion valuation
Yep.
and got paid. So, congrats to that guy,
Yep.
whoever did that. But at the same time, there are, so obviously that didn't work out for anyone who participated in that deal. It worked out wonderfully before the company went bust, because
Yep.
unlike sitting on your common shares that you would have as employee equity, they were all wiped out. I mean,
Yep.
they all
Yep.
got nothing. So, that's an example. And, you have to be careful, right? There are times when it maybe, like, when you're investing in a 500 million or, 1 billion. The first investment I made was in Lyft.
Yep.
They
Nice.
were already worth 1.5 billion.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, it
Yep.
wasn't it wasn't exactly an angel investment.
Yep.
And something that's worth 1.5 billion, the likelihood of it going to zero um, is much, much less
Yep.
than if you invested in Lyft at a $10 million post money standard YC safe note and you just threw some money in. You're going to miss that whole upside move from the 10 million to the 1.5 billion. But
Yep.
coming in later, you don't really have as much of a risk for the down. It might not be the best outcome ever,
Sure. Sure.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Lyft, for example, went public at a $15 billion valuation. and I
Yep.
invested at 1.5. Okay. So back of the envelope math is you're thinking, oh, that's a 10x when the IPO, and forget about
Yep.
the fact that the shares were locked up and they absolutely tanked. I mean, they hit like
Yeah.
$80. I don't know if they'll ever see $80 again, ever. I have no idea. I don't follow the company anymore. But the
What was the
point is,
time period between your investment and the Lyft IPO?
um, shit, I don't know.
A few
Years.
months? Oh, years. Okay.
No,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a
yeah,
few
yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But the thing with that is going investing in a $1.5 billion valuation, and then they go public at 15 billion. And
Yep.
then by the time everything sorts out and you have an idea of what you own and how this looks, I
Yep.
was only sitting on a 3 to 4x
Yeah. Yeah.
because the company had diluted so much in
Yeah.
those subsequent rounds, and you're not privy to that information as a
Yeah.
small check investor in some of these deals. But if you don't have the Columbia MBA, you learn about dilution in those
Yeah.
rounds real time as you
Yeah.
go.
What made
So
you, no, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
What made you make the jump from, let's call it Web 2 tech, right? The traditional tech to Bitcoin, investing in Bitcoin, essentially, and building.
Well, there really weren't too many Bitcoin deals.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wish that I started angel investing earlier than I did. I wish that I started truly angel investing in 2012, 2013,
Yeah.
because, all of a sudden you wake up and it's so and so invites you to invest in Coinbase. They
Yeah.
were in the latest YC batch, and, I would have probably invested in all those deals. Robinhood,
Yeah.
Coinbase, all of the flavors of that era. I loved that stuff. I ended up picking up Robinhood later on the secondary markets before they
Yeah.
went public. Um, but, I wish I had started earlier. And there, truthfully, besides maybe things like Kraken, couple of exchanges, there weren't really too many Bitcoin type of investment opportunities.
Yeah.
When I started, obviously there were some, right? There's always companies, but a lot of them are not located inside the US.
Yeah.
They're not really investable in a lot of ways. And the things that are, maybe there were wallets. You could invest in a wallet
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
few things like that, but there weren't as robust of an ecosystem as there is today, which Bitcoin is finding its way into every industry. I
Yeah.
mean, whether it's healthcare or advertising technology, video games, art, infrastructure, rewards. I mean, you basically name an industry, and Bitcoin is finding its way in there. So,
Yeah.
once the amount of Bitcoin opportunities kind of started to increase, or at least there was more there, then investing in everything else that's I used to love all this stuff, micro mobility, the
Yeah.
limes and bird scooters. Bird scooters was a terrible outcome, by the way, at least for me. But investing in those type of things, right? Turo.
Bird Lime came out. It was like the U.S. cities were littered with scooters.
hmm
Yeah.
Lime is supposed to IPO here soon. Maybe there's a little bit of
Mm.
life in that one.
Yeah.
But Bird was a terrible outcome.
Yeah.
But those were the type of deals that I liked.
Yeah.
I loved all the food delivery stuff, the cloud
Yeah.
kitchen craze, all of that type of thing. I mean, I was just really looking at that. And occasionally there'd be a little bit of a Bitcoin deal, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
pre pre Lightning Ventures in October 2020, I was lucky enough to invest in Fold. I had
Yeah.
just started my angel investing, dialing up deal flow, right? And to where you're seeing deals, you have to get
Yeah.
that going. And somebody sent me Fold, and I was already a fan of the company and loved them, so luckily invested in that. But there weren't a ton. There
Yeah.
weren't a ton of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
opportunities then. And now, whether it's insurance, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is everywhere. So now, when we started, it seemed like a good time to really just focus on that.
Yeah. So when you say BTC, so Bitcoin startups, what are they? Because I think one of the big misconceptions, of course, for those who are not really in the industry, is you just buy Bitcoin and that's it. Like what is a Bitcoin uh, company, investable company?
So when you think about companies that are building on, around, or with Bitcoin and surrounding that, I mean, I draw the comparison. It's basically like the internet, right? What is
Yep.
an
Yep.
internet company? Is an internet company Netscape? Is it a browser?
Yep.
Is it Microsoft in general? Is it the hardware? Is it Cisco Systems? Is it Time Warner? Is it all of these other things? Okay, they're all internet related. So,
Yep.
if Bitcoin does what we all think it's going to do, these companies are going to do extraordinarily well, just
Yep.
like all of those companies did. And that's kind of what we're betting on. So, the easiest thing to think about with what is a Bitcoin company is your basic exchange, your basic on and
Yep.
off ramp exchange. And we've invested in many of them globally. So whether it's Amber in Australia or, Swan or Strike here in the US or Relay in Europe or
Yep.
BIPA in Brazil or Beaver Bitcoin in Canada or whatever. There's some that we haven't even invested in, Neutron Pay in Southeast Asia. And it's basically your same type of app. I'm Gitbit in India. Okay,
Yep.
it's a Bitcoin only exchange. They're not selling crypto. They're not
Yep.
selling Pepe or Sui or any of these other kind of tokens or projects or anything else. There's no confusion for the person. The person
Yep.
is using it and just buying Bitcoin, whether that's daily, weekly, direct deposit, conversions, smash buy, call it whatever you want. They're only buying Bitcoin. There's usually a Lightning Network component there for easy transfers and sending,
Yep.
and some good educational component built into that app. And there's usually also a remittance play. So, like in the case of Gitbit, not only are they an India registered,
Yep.
legal exchange, right? But there are a whole lot of people in the US every week, whether they're, successful tech executives in the Pacific Northwest here in the US. They're sending thousands and thousands of
Yep.
dollars every week back to India. And they're getting screwed with Wise and these other companies. And they've built a better, faster way to send money back to India
Yep.
via the Lightning Network instantaneously, nearly free. And one of the cool things about Gitbit is, and a lot of Bitcoin companies now, is there's actually no mention of Bitcoin on their website. When you go, they actually rebranded. They're actually called Crobo now, cross border. But when you go to their website, there's no mention of Bitcoin. There's no honey badgers and laser eyes or
Yep.
anything
Yep.
like that. You just go there and it's, hey, this is a new way to send money to India. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Link your Plaid account, blah, blah, blah. Better
Yep.
exchanges. Compare us to Wise. We'll save you money. Boom. They have no idea that Bitcoin is actually powering that transaction on the back end. And I love that. I
Yep.
love that. And
Yep.
you're going to start seeing that a lot more. So those are the kind of Bitcoin startups that I first, really really was bullish on because
Yep.
first off, they had revenue and everyone needs Bitcoin.
Yep.
Uh, and there's just so many flavors of this type of thing, like Osmo in Central America. They're building a Venmo for
Yep.
Central America, Latin America, and with a
On
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
focused, it's focused like that. Maybe they'll have a few stable coin integrations, but still you can buy Bitcoin in maybe
Yep.
6 or 7 countries, 6 or 7 currencies, and that's kind of what they're building in that area, right? It's a lot of different flavors of like the same thing,
Yep.
and they're all having record months. If you're in the
Yep.
business of buying and selling Bitcoin recently, right now, you're having absolute record months. You're
Yep.
you're you're doing great. And the companies who aren't buying and selling Bitcoin are definitely growing and still doing well. But right now, everyone wants more Bitcoin. That's the
Yep.
fact of the matter.
Hey, Matthias here, and if you're enjoying this and want access to even more alpha, early stage deals and opportunities, and also behind the scenes insights on the markets, hit the link in the description and make sure you're subscribed. It's free and it puts you ahead of the curve. Let's get back to the show. Do you see more usage of the, let's call them the wrappers, for lack of a better name? So the remittance platforms, right? That use Bitcoin to send transactions, compete with Wise, but ultimately the user doesn't know, right, that it's actually BTC being sent. What's the adoption rate? How are those growing over the last, say, 12 to 24 months?
Um, they're all they're all having record volume.
Yeah,
Anyone in the remittance play or the Bitcoin business or the buy and sell, the exchange, I mean,
yeah,
something like Pouch in the Philippines, everything. We had some Philippines employees,
yeah.
and it's just so much better and easier for us
To use that. Mm,
it's, I mean, it's
yeah, yeah,
ridiculous
yeah,
how
yeah,
we can just send a Lightning transaction to them and it automatically converts in their wallet and they have Philippine pesos.
yeah,
Done.
yeah,
Okay. There's no question of it. They can cash it out instantly to their bank. It just works great.
yeah,
In Africa, there's a company we invested in called Bitnob. They're doing the same. We had a
yeah,
couple of African developers who were helping us out. I said, download Bitnob, and it's just absolutely seamless to
yeah,
multiple currencies, and it just works great. So that type of trend, I imagine, is only going to increase.
yeah,
And one of the other kind of when you think about what is a Bitcoin startup, when these banks start adding Bitcoin, what are they going to do for the infrastructure?
yeah,
What are they going to do? So we're trying to invest in nearly every company that they could potentially use when Bank of America wants to add
yeah.
Bitcoin or add
Acquire. It's an acquisition play.
what are they going to do? I
Exactly.
don't
Yeah,
think they're going to build it. I
yeah,
don't think Bank
yeah,
of
yeah,
America
yeah,
is going to manage their own channels.
yeah,
I think they'll probably use someone like Amboss for liquidity. They
yeah,
might use OpenNode or IBEX for a lot of these type of things. So,
yeah,
we're trying to cover those bases. When Airbnb or Uber, when they finally do add Bitcoin, what are they going to do? How are
yeah,
they going to add that to their checkout process? You saw that with Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake is using
yeah,
Speedwall.
yeah,
Speedwallet got the contract for that, and they built that out. So we're trying to cover all those bases.
yeah. Yeah, I think when old industries, in this case the banking industry, when they've been trailing for years now, the only way for them to try to catch up is to acquire these new native companies. And so there's going to be a flurry of acquisitions. We've seen this in payment processing in the last 15 years. Whenever a big industry is trailing, they just go for the quick, okay, what can we buy? And same thing that's happening today with AI and employees and companies overbidding to acquire talent. So I definitely think it's the more Bitcoin grows, the more these banks, and if you look at the banking infrastructure, I'm sure you know how clunky and outdated the actual rails of some of these banks, some of these, like the actual technology is 10, 15 years old. They will go in and acquire one of these players just to be quickly back in the game.
It's crazy. I actually just paid a credit card bill this morning, and Bank of America's website and process is so terrible.
Yep.
It
Yep.
really looks like a 1998 sort of website,
Yep.
just the UI UX. It's not great. It's not impressive. And you go to some of these Bitcoin startups and it just looks and feels,
Yeah.
for lack of a
Smooth. It's
better
just
word,
it's
sexy.
100%. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you either build it, you buy it, or you open source it, right? You
Yep.
open source
Yep.
it if you're behind. I mean, that's what they're trying to do with the AI craze, right? I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
Facebook was behind, open source it and try and catch up. But
Yep.
I think a lot of these companies, there's going to be a huge consolidation in the space.
Yep.
And I think that they're all going to be gunning for them. I
Yep.
think
Yep.
when Barclays, it's just a matter of time. They're going to want to acquire someone over there,
Yep.
And now with the Bitcoin treasury play and that
Yep.
whole craze, which I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, I'm a huge fan of holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and that's great and all. But I do think that there's some kind of froth in the whole
Yep.
idea of Bitcoin treasury companies. I'd rather invest in a real Bitcoin company that happens to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet
Yep.
as an operating Bitcoin company than a strategy of people that are doing whatever they're doing
Yep.
to acquire more
It
Bitcoin.
it's become so hot, right? Over the last really 6 months. I'm curious to see how everything plays out in the next 6 to 24 months when some of these companies are, become forced sellers just because of price action. It could be 2, 3 years from now, but I think it's gonna be interesting to see who manages to actually keep the Bitcoin they've acquired. I think that's really the big test.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that the Bitcoin treasury companies will one day represent the greatest shorting opportunity
Yeah.
that we've seen in a long time.
Yep.
But there's still a lot of room in the tank, you know.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I'm not a bear, you know.
Yep.
I
Oh,
have
absolutely. I agree.
I
Yeah.
have some
Yeah.
MicroStrategy stock, full
Yeah.
disclosure, and
Yeah.
I don't know. They're a pretty fast horse. I don't know how
Yep.
anyone catches them, and there's so many levers and tools
Yeah.
that Saylor has, and you know, has basically created and started.
Yeah.
Some of these low cap ones, I mean, especially like, you know, a hotel in Mexico that bought 21 Bitcoin. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, those aren't investments for me.
Yeah.
That's not my style.
Yeah. Let's talk about retail versus accredited investors and providing access. I know that's something you do. How did you get into that, and what are the problems that you're solving?
So, the accredited investor scam is it's changed quite a bit over the years, and it's
Yep.
changing now. There's legislation in place where they're talking about implementing a test, kind of a test-based
Yep.
I don't know who would administer the test. In the UK, for example, they have a test and they put the onerous on the platform to administer the test for the government with like a
Mm.
cryptocurrency kind of test
Yep.
before
Yep.
you
Yep.
buy, you know. So if that passes here, which would be great, I think that everyone should have access
Yep.
to investing in private companies. I mean, you have access to go gamble your life on a hand of blackjack. I don't know why you wouldn't
Yep.
be able to do something else with it. You can lose money in all sorts of wonderful ways
Yep.
that is perfectly legal. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to lose money with this. I mean, I
Yep.
personally think it's kind of a rigged system. I think they like keeping people out. I think this is where a
Yep.
lot of generational wealth is made, are in these areas. And I think if you had the opportunity to be the last $1,000 into an oversubscribed deal where everyone and their brother was in, that's the best place that you can be, in my
Yep.
opinion. Um,
Yep.
so they've changed the laws over the years to where you now certain designations like a Series 7, Series 65, which anyone can get a Series 65.
Yep.
If you study that test and you take it, the hack to becoming an accredited investor without earning it is to get your 65 license. Okay, and there's a lot of great resources on the internet where you can read and learn from people who've done it, and there's groups and all of that
Yep.
stuff. But getting your 65 is your best way to be accredited without meeting any sort of income or financial thresholds. The other way you can become accredited is you can just click the right button, okay, which is which is a joke. I'm joking, but it's a self-accreditation process. Okay. So keep that in
This is,
mind.
what's funny is like the US is really one of the only countries that makes it so difficult for people who have competence but don't have the actual digits to invest. It's a very interesting process around this whole and it's improved over the years, but it's still um, it really limits a lot of people from investing in and also being able to take on risk and reward. And if someone if the disclosures are and the disclaimers are clear, they should be able to invest the same way they're betting on sports you mentioned or gambling. It's the same, at least the same, if not more interesting to be able to invest in real companies. Um, it's been a barrier for years, and it's really limited the upside that many investors could get.
Yeah, I'm excited
Yeah.
to see that law change.
Yeah.
Whether it's a
Do you know
test
the
or
time frame estimate? What's your view?
No, I don't. Every once in a
Mm,
while in one of these newsletters, I see an update to the bill. But
yep.
if you Google it or have a look at it, you can read some of the proposed stuff that's in there. And basically, it talks about a test. I think it maybe widens some of the income, adds a few other financial designations. But it's kind of a joke, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, to be completely honest, it's kind of, but you don't know. And
Yeah.
it's designed like that on purpose. It's designed where you have to make this person attest to it, but
Yeah.
then nobody's going to verify it, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to verify anything unless there's a problem.
Yeah.
If there's a problem one day, that's another story. But it's kind of funny
Yeah.
how it works. And even with the language of like, did you earn $200,000 last year?
Yeah.
And do you expect to earn it this year? I think that that's just kind of funny because if you're a
Yeah.
positive thinking person,
Of course. You
you
expect the
have
best.
certainty. Yes, of course I'm going to earn it this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just kind of funny.
In terms of deal flow, when you compare what's going on the BTC startups in that area versus, let's call it trad tech, right? How many deals do you see a month or a year? Let's talk, for example, this year at half in the last 6 months, BTC startups, and how does that compare to the traditional tech deal flow, the amount of deals?
Drop in the bucket.
Mm,
It's an absolute pimple.
yeah,
It's a grain of sand on the mountain. Even with Bitcoin in the forefront and the price is great and it's definitely in the news and it's not the bulk of the innovation that you see. Actually,
yeah,
this most recent YC Y Combinator cohort,
yep,
I think it had zero Bitcoin companies.
mm,
I think it had about 70 stablecoin companies.
yeah,
But no, I mean, I look at every YC cohort, and we've actually invested in a few that have went through YC, and they're
yep,
Bitcoin companies. Thea, they just started a new product also for tapping your home equity to buy
yeah,
Bitcoin. They were a
yep,
YC company. Bitstack out of France, company's on fire. They're doing great, kind of like an Acorns Roundup. That's how they started
yep,
with Bitcoin. But have a bunch of other products now. They're on fire, right? They were in YC. But other than
yep,
that, there really weren't too many.
yep,
I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
think
yeah.
of too many others. I would be hard pressed. I know there might be
Why
a
is
third.
that, you think? Is it because, I mean, is it competence? Is it the amount of founders willing to build on it, or is it just it's the start of that wave?
I think it's the start of that wave. I
Mm,
think it's kind of an unproven market, and I
yeah,
think that
yeah,
there's technology, or at least unproven for what they believe,
yeah,
unproven. But, when you look at all of the other innovation and everything else in the world, I mean, Bitcoin is just one small part of it,
yeah,
right? I mean, 300, there's like there's like 2,000 banks in Africa and
yeah,
none of them
yeah,
talk
yeah,
to
yeah,
each other in 50 countries. Like there's a lot of other financial tools that need to be built and are being built right now.
yeah,
And AI and the robotics and everything else, there's a ton of that stuff.
yeah,
It's not necessarily for me right now, but there is a lot of that going on. So there's just a lot of innovation all over the world, and Bitcoin right now is just a small part of it. But
yeah,
some of my favorite companies, when you're talking about what are Bitcoin startups, some of my favorite companies are bridging that TradFi world with
yeah,
the hyper Bitcoinized future that we all think is going to happen. So,
yeah,
like for example, Bold Bitcoin's a portfolio company. They just launched a banking for Bitcoiners type of product where, it's a checking account, it's a routing number, you can do the direct deposit, you can buy
yeah,
directly from it, all that. But you get like 3% back in Bitcoin for using their debit card at every swipe.
yeah,
And of course,
yeah,
like the gamification, the more Bitcoin you buy, the more rewards you can get. And it's just kind of fun,
yeah,
But for the longest time, especially during the last administration, you couldn't have any of this. I mean,
yeah,
companies were
yeah,
losing all of their banking partners and
yeah,
relationships. Like you couldn't have an easy debit card that sort of worked with fiat and all
Yeah.
of that. It was new. So I love that stuff. The issuing the card products, the gift
Yeah.
card stuff, the reloadable cards. I mean, there's just a lot of innovation that's happening in that space, more so in Europe because their laws are looser.
Yeah.
A lot of things that can happen in Europe that can't happen, or out, should I say, outside the United States,
Yeah.
that can't happen here, even though we're where all the innovation happens,
Yeah.
right, with technology as a whole. So, few
Yeah.
things need to kind of even out.
What do you like from everything you're seeing, right? The pitch decks, the industry as a whole, what makes you the most bullish, yes, but also just excited? Like what gets your energy up when you look at all this, like the investment landscape?
Well, the performance of existing portfolio companies, and especially the volume,
Mm,
um, is up and to the right.
yeah,
And there's more of it coming kind of all over the world. Whether that's something like maybe in the Caribbean, that's going to
interesting.
be
Yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
similar type of deal, right? It's
Yeah.
a Bitcoin only exchange. Like their banking infrastructure is absolutely atrocious.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah. It's 20 to 30 years old. I've seen it. It's bad. Yeah.
and when you're there, that's an interesting opportunity because once the banks are kind of warm to you, you're kind
Yeah.
of like reworking this for them. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah,
kind of get a pass. Like here in the US, at least for the last 4 years, you were like fighting and coming
yeah,
up with all these creative ways. Oh, it's non-custodial. I don't need
yeah,
MTLs. We're not touching the funds. You have all this kind of nonsense you have to work around, and then you go to some of these other countries where they're just kind of like, you know, can you
yeah,
help us with that? Hey,
yeah,
that's really
yeah,
cool. Wow,
yeah,
that's been broken for 20 years. We'd love to
yeah,
see that, you know. So you're in kind of an interesting position there. I love the remittances. I love to see the activity go up. Um, and really, I mean, the adoption. I mean, Emirates
yeah,
Airlines the other day just announced that they're going to be accepting Bitcoin. You know, that's
yeah,
big. Maybe they'll only accept it while the price is going up. I don't know how
yeah,
long they're going to accept it. They can accept it forever. I mean, there's a lot of chatter about that part of the world and Bitcoin. But how are they accepting it? You know, which
yeah,
company are they using? You know, you can't really verify it or prove it, but basically, Tesla ran their own BTC Pay server instance. I
yeah,
mean, they
yeah,
were they were smart enough to run their own node and fire that up,
yeah,
for themselves. But I don't think that anyone is really going to do that.
yeah. What do you think of this cycle? I use the word cycle because that's what people think, right? When it comes to the 4 year cycle, where are we now when it comes to adoption? We're at 120K ish Bitcoin price right now. What's your view on the next 1 to 2 years?
It's a different cycle with the ETFs and the
Yep.
quote unquote paper Bitcoin.
Yep.
And, I'm not like the macro guy. You got to have Dylan LeClaire or Lynn Alden or one of those fancy folks on here for something like that. But when you think about how much Bitcoin BlackRock owns,
Yep.
and you think about the possibility of soft forks or contentious forks in the future, I mean,
Yep.
anyone who was around during the user activated soft fork and SegWit and all of the things that happened back then, that was a much different sort of contentious situation than you would have today when
Yep.
you have major players that have a ton of Bitcoin that they're
Yep.
paper Bitcoin that they're custodying on behalf of people, and they're kind of deciding, what would happen in a Bitcoin
Yep.
Cash type of scenario here, in this point in time. So it's much different. The ability to actually deploy capital out of retirement accounts easily,
Yep.
401ks to
Yep.
tap trusts and other assets, that never really existed before. And if it did, it was very hard to say you got to set up a checkbook IRA, you got to do all
Yep.
these things. Like now, it's just a couple of clicks. Right.
Yep.
So the access to at least gain exposure to Bitcoin is where it's never been before. So that's kind of interesting to think about.
Yep.
It's no longer, BitMEX long, leverage long sort of funding
Yep.
rate
Yep.
and taking a look. Like that's kind of out the window. I was kind of joking, thinking about it the other day. Like, are we going to see the Darth Maul candle again? Are we going to
Yep.
have like a $6,000, $7,000, down wick one of
Drop. Yeah. Yeah.
these
Yeah. Yeah.
days? Does that happen in
Yep.
orderly markets? Like with the ETFs and everything
Yep.
else? I don't know. And then you look at things like the mempool is empty. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
empty. There was like 150 transactions in it the other day when I glanced at it. One sat per V byte. Uh, Somebody actually figured out a way to pay less than a sat per V byte. I don't even know how that happens. But I
Yep.
was reading his thread on how he did it. But the mempool is empty, and some people argue that means Bitcoin's not working. Some people argue and say that that means Bitcoin's working great. Does that
Yep.
mean Lightning Network is working and more people are using Lightning and there's less transactions? I mean, I'd say that everything is working. But you have all these things that never happened before. A lot of times
Yep.
at all-time highs, you have a jammed mempool. People are paying $100 fees. There's a lot of problems. So. Um, the other thing is like, what is it? We will, all your models are broken kind of
Yep.
meme or whatever. And that's
Yeah.
true.
And it's
Like there
true. It's true. It's true. Yeah. Yeah.
is no coin. There is no Bitcoin really for sale. There
Yep.
isn't. When people
Yep.
try to buy it, um, I mean, Samson Mao doesn't think it's going to be a slow grind up to $1 million. He thinks it's going to happen just in a very short order of
Yep.
period, you
Yep.
know. And I don't think anyone really knows. But
What's your
everyone's,
view actually on price, pure price action, not financial advice? What's your view? I don't know, the next 6 to 12 months.
I think, especially with the laws changing where now banks are allowed to custody it and offer
Yep.
it, that was huge. Okay.
Yep.
They might
Yep.
not be yet, but the fact that they can, the fact that you have it being accepted for, down payments in the
Yep.
real estate, all of this stuff is coming, and it takes a while. It doesn't it
Yep.
doesn't just roll out overnight. But I think as it becomes a more acceptable and accepted asset or store
Yep.
of value, really, because you think about it, like anyone with a Bitcoin ETF or any kind of paper Bitcoin, you're not spending it. You're
Yep.
not using it as intended. It's
Yep.
never a P2P Fidelity Bitcoin ETF transaction. Okay. And that's fine. It's not for everybody. I think that there's different
Yep.
vehicles, and maybe you have all of them. But for Bitcoin to really work, don't people need to use it? I mean, to some
Yep.
degree. I mean, when JP Morgan or when some big behemoth dinosaur bank finally adds Bitcoin, okay, and they probably not even going to say Bitcoin, they're probably called digital assets,
Yeah, I
right?
agree.
Get started
Yeah.
with digital assets brought
Yeah.
to you by Merrill Lynch or whatever
Yeah.
they're going to say, right? You log in, and eventually they're going to realize like, oh, I can't actually spend this. I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
actually do anything with it. They could borrow against it. They'll get the price appreciation, which is great and all, but they're not going to be able to have a truly unconfiscatable asset,
Yeah.
if that's something that they want. And honestly, I mean, 12 words terrifies some people, and maybe that's just something they're not interested in.
Yeah. Anything, so last question here. Anything you want the audience to really remember, closing words for today's show?
Closing words, if anyone's still interesting in listening, is go to ltng.ventures. That's
Yep.
Lightning Ventures. You can learn more about what we're doing there. You can sign up, hit a contact form or something or other. We will send you a custom invite to join the world's largest group of Bitcoin-focused angel investors. That's what we're doing there. Putting the
Nice.
fun in funding. That's what we're
Yep.
trying to do.
We'll
And we'll
link everything around for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no,
cool.
this is, yeah, go ahead.
And yeah, and check out thunderfunder.com.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to push a big update there. We had two deals, the Orange Pill app and Jolts. Jolts is bringing stable coins to the Lightning Network. Really cool company.
Yep.
So we've only had 2 deals so far. It's new, but make sure to sign up. It's free, of course, and get in the flow to see new deals that are coming.
Yep.
And reach out to me anytime with any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Nice.
Or if you're a founder or a
Yep.
builder and you're looking to raise capital, fill out the raise capital form and get in touch that way, and we'll see if we
Yep.
can get on the books.
Yep, very cool. There's a few people actually I think I can connect you with for that specifically, BTC founders. So, Mike, thank you for being on the show. Thank you everyone for being on. This was very BTC heavy. I think it's great because again, I think we need to bring more awareness to Bitcoin in the sense that it's not just about buying Bitcoin, but there's so much being built as we speak with Bitcoin. So, Mike, thank you for being on. We will link everything around this video and these clips, and we will talk to everyone next time. Talk soon.
Thank you, Mateus.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. If you got value from this episode, you're going to love what's coming next. So subscribe now. We drop new episodes and videos several times a week featuring power players, market movers, and insiders from the financial world. And if you want access to deals and insights we only share privately, hit the links in the description and we'll see you on the next show.